Behold, a cold open.
I got another set of x-rays on my fucked up hip, but that's not important because what's important is in the waiting room there was a guy who he just had Richard Kind's head. Like it was just his head. And it was on just like a muscular, vascular muscle guy, like an old-timey bodybuilder body. And I'm going to tell you something, Tom. It was upsetting.
Yeah, Joe, you told me about this, and I've had some time to reflect on this image, to be clear of.
Beloved character actor Richard Kind's head on a muscular body.
Man, I've given this a lot of thought. I've tried to open my mind, but the fact is that there's really only one reaction that I keep having, and it is that
was my take. I went up to the front desk lady. I was like, "This is not okay. You allow this?" The other thing I also thought of, maybe it really was him, and like that's how good this clinic is. Like they gave him a whole new fucking body.
Famously schlubby Richard Kind, a man who's sort of shaped like an egg.
Yeah, now he's 8 feet tall, and I go up to him, and I have to look straight up and say, "I loved you in serious, man."
What was it like being on Curb Your Enthusiasm? Do you really make it all up?
But yeah, I have a confirmed bone impingement, which means I get to just yell, "My bone is impinged," and everyone has to be nice to me.
Before, I was hanging out with Joe one day, and he was having difficulty scaling a set of stairs, and everyone was like, bitch of Earth, kill him." And he was like, "I'm having real trouble." And everyone was like, "We'll never believe it. Only an impingement would shut us up." And Joe just cried because he had nothing in the tank to shoot back with. But
now I have 2 confirmations of an impingement. I am just absolutely flush with excuses to complain.
That said, seeing Richard Kind on a muscular...
It was so fucked. It was so fucked. It was so scary. It was just everything.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Anime Sickos. It's the podcast for geniuses and the only podcast where we take a look at the 4 pillars of modern misery: anime, gaming, posting, and jobs. I am Tom, an anime sicko.
I'm Joe, an anime sicko.
So we have a Patreon. Have you heard of this? You can get such benefits as nothing.
Well, no, we read your name once.
You read your name once. You can game the system so as to make us do it multiple times by canceling your pledge and then pledging. You don't even have to. It only charges you on the first of the month. You can get like 29 reads and not pay anything. We're too dumb to check. I would actually, you know what? That's not. Sometimes we like overplay how stupid we are. We're clever guys. I would know. However, I would respect the gag so much that I'm going to yes and you and read your name 29 times if you do that. This one, so this is, I'm looking at the email address. I never say the email address because there's a lot of dead names because of our audience. You understand. But I'm looking at the email address. This is our boy Bevan. He's been with us since the beginning. I say that because the thing that I would normally read, like the Patreon name, is like a joke that I don't get what he's referring to, because it is, okay, this time it was fraud. Not my fault. Sorry.
Oh, it's because he got a new credit card. I'm so smart. What would you do without me? You would be like a babe in the woods. You're lucky I can be the blaster to your master and can just ride on your back and give you information.
I was going to say, like, wait, which one's which? Like, I'm not riding on your back. You got a hip impingement. You're going to fucking collapse, dude. You're collapsed with no guy in your back.
Yeah, it'd be no good. I don't know, actually, which one. I think Blaster was the big guy. That makes sense, because Master would be calling the shots. I also wouldn't be surprised if it was switched intentionally for effect.
Also, well, consider this. The guy on the shoulders can't be Blaster because he'd be blasting directly into the back of a neck. Gross.
That's true. That's true.
It has to be a fully unencumbered blasting surface, which is what the bottom guy has. Blasting surface. I don't like that. Joe, so I came to your house and made you do this. This might sound like Joe's chronic pain keeps him from doing things. No, 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 no. What we're talking about, it has a ramp up to get to the good part. It is difficult to have the willpower to like eat this treat. But when you eat the treat, oh my god. We watched a movie. We watched a movie called Hundreds of Beavers. It's been recommended to us a million times. You're probably going to think, oh, this is an anime episode because you call all movies anime. And Hundreds of Beavers actually has animation in it. So this is definitely an anime episode. No, bitch.
It's gaming. It's just fucking gaming. There's like a UI. The UI design is very good, Tom.
This is the first movie with the UI. It's so, like, the iconography is, like, this feels like it's, like, how many Pikmin, like, the little Pikmin icon that shows how many of each Pikmin you have. Like, that's in the movie. And, like, you might be like, doesn't, like, Terminator have a UI with the Terminator vision? Like, no. That's, like, a thing in it. Like, Hundreds of Beavers has a UI which exists, like, purely for, like, your purposes to, like, show fast travel occurring.
Correct. And also it's a slow reveal. Like, it's not like, oh, this feels like a game. It's just like, actually, everything you've been looking at is, in fact, a game. Yes, it is full game mode.
So here's I'm going to give you the gist of Hundreds of Beavers before we get into the specifics, because that's really the whole game here is the specifics. Like, when you hear, like, the structure of this movie, you'll understand what I mean. So this is a fucking pair of homies from Wisconsin. They made this movie, Hundreds of Beavers, totally independently, and it is about a guy who made cider, but his cider got destroyed, and so he has to make do, making a living being a fur trapper. And the way that works is there are about 1 million 2-minute scenes of him attempting a Looney Tunes gag to do some trapping. And initially he fails, and eventually he gets better at it. And his traps and schemes get more intricate. And that's pretty much the whole thing.
That's not an oversimplification. If you like Looney Tunes gags, and you just like to sit and think about goof logic, especially as the same goof logic plays out in different contexts over the course of like an hour and a half film, this movie is wonderful for that. Oh my god, yes. It's top shelf for that. The reason I had trouble getting into it initially is, like, I want to be clear, this movie is very fun. It's all those things. At the same time, it is also kind of exhausting. Like, at the end of the movie, I had a great time. I was also sleepy.
Yes. It's... I was watching it the second time. I knew exactly what it was going to happen. I was also having a good time because I was with my friend, my buddy, and I was seeing like the locks unlock in your head as like, because like there are certain events.
There are gates. There are literally gates. Like, they're insanity gates. I think one of your insanity gates is, we will talk about this more in depth, but at one point he gets a baseball bat that's like a wiffle bat, and like the game logic is if you touch someone with the bat, they die. It doesn't matter how hard you hit them because it does fatal damage.
Yes, this is why we talk about it's gaming. The logic of this movie, and this is definitely intentional, is like the world is programmed with rules, and one of them is like if bat equals touch, then dead. And so you can see like how that might
and later
if you use that logic.
Yeah, it's absolutely that. When people speedrun games and it's like kind of janky and it's like, are they like kind of breaking the limits of the game with like what they're doing? There's some of that in there too. There's a fucking invisible wall joke.
There's a visible wall joke there. Well, that is so good because there's two. That's so fucking funny. Two right in a row. Okay. So the reason that we say like it's difficult to like get into this, to get into the swing in the movie is because, like any game with a deep system of rules and a really expressive set of mechanics. You're not going to be able to get into them unless you have a big tutorial, and the tutorial is really a slog to get through. Because like the first like half hour of this movie is just a series of little 2-minute scenes where our guy is like, I would like to trap a rabbit to have. And he attempts to trap a rabbit with a trap, and the trap does not work. Next scene. And like that goes on and on and on for so long. And I understand why, because this movie is two homies in the woods making their gags real with no major like there's no studio being like, you have to cut half of these gags, this is way too long. I mean, and to their credit, every gag taken out of context and just looked at as it is great.
It's fine, yes. The issue is the gags at the end of the film, after it has gotten out of first gear, have like so many fucking multipliers on them compared to how they are at the start. At the start, they're funny, sure. However, Tom said a lot of this is showing that he's failing again and again. Yes. The other thing, which he mentioned, is that the movie is showing again and again, okay, here are sort of the programmed logic rules of the world.
Yes.
So you're getting a little bit of taste of that as he fails. The thing is, you don't actually know you're getting that just yet. You don't know he's going to start playing with game mechanics. You're just getting the sense that, this is like a Looney Tunes like failure thing.
Yeah. And like one for example is, and to be clear, this is essentially a silent movie. I mean, there is a soundtrack and there are sounds coming out of the people's mouths, but it's like, as Joe says, Banjo-Kazooie sounds.
Yeah, it's not real, and it's better for it. It's just 100 times better. There's nothing to process except visual information and goofs.
Yes, and but one sort of example of like you don't know you're being foreshadowed to is at one point something happens that makes our hero go, and when that happens, a woodpecker comes out of nowhere and starts pecking his fucking head, and he goes and then the scene ends. Later he goes and has a look of like uh-oh, and the bird comes again, and then well, I'm not going to get into the very specifics, but later on, when he starts making extremely complex traps that uses all of the logic of the world,
he abuses the whistle mechanic. He uses it to trigger traps.
Yes, because he can make like a fake head that looks like him and like attach things to it so that when he wants the trap to be sprung, he goes, and then the woodpecker like pecks his fake head and destroys it, and then causes a rope to like whoosh go over here, and then that does the you so many times you don't think you're being foreshadowed to. Like that's a very basic example because like you can kind of tell after the second time, like I bet there's going to be variations of this, whistle and then the woodpecker, like because there have been variations, and I bet it's going to keep going. But there are so many times when you don't know you're being foreshadowed to, because how could you be? This is just a movie where it's a series of visual gags. Like there's no foreshadowing to, like, what would it even be?
I think of the end of the Hunter x Hunter anime where it's like, oh, this is the map of the world. As you can see, the Dark Continent, which we just noticed now, is huge. Much of the world is actually big and scary as you zoom out. And like, that's what this movie is. Not maybe scary, but like there is so much more as we slowly zoom out.
Yes. I was telling Joe that so many parts of this movie feel like the part where you're playing Cookie Clicker, where you're like, you see the concept of a port, like you see the portal building and it's like grayed out because it's so far away from what you're able to afford, and you see that it gives you like 1.6 million cookies per second per portal, and you look at like, I'm making 10,000 cookies per second. Like I can't imagine like what
if
kind
I
of
need
universe.
A portal, if I can do that, the game's over anyway. Look at that cookie rate,
Yeah, and then you get the portal and like you feel like the guy in that logo for home audio equipment who's getting blown back in his chair, and you see the numbers, and then like that's when you realize like, wait a minute, like 1.6 million cookies per second is nothing. Like I've been trying to trap a rabbit for the last half hour, but what I really should be going for is hundreds of beavers.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up because there's most movies don't have a merchant shop. Like a guy you go to in between scenes to upgrade your gear. There is, just like this is games, there's like literally a vendor who has his prices like above his little lemonade stand. He's like a gruff old man, and it's just like, oh, to get a axe, it's like, what, 2 beavers. If you want a peace pipe, it is whatever this. It's and literally when he looks at each individual item on the sign, it highlights as if it's a
It goes
UI.
like, whoop, 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 whoop.
Yeah.
Oh, and also, this is another reason that it's a UI. The little icons of the dead animals are like the same icons that show up like on the screen when he's like actually trapping them to show how many he has. And also when he's like making his notes in his journal, he draws the exact same icons for the animals. Because that's the other thing on his like when he on his map, he also like draws like the tech tree of like what beavers like not tech tree, but just like what animals trump which other animals and like what they like, so that like beaver goes to a pile of shit, which I don't understand. That's never explained, but apparently beavers can't resist a pile of shit that has castor oil put on it.
I'll take their word for it.
Skunks love frogs.
Beavers also like carved crucifixes of Jesus.
Yes, and they like apples that have been carved out of wood. Oh my god. So again, like the name of the game is the specifics, because like there's not a lot of plot, and so it's just going to be
Let's
gags,
talk
and we're just
some science of gags. So do you want to just say the point we want to start talking about is when he gets the hat? I feel like that was the turning point, like where you were like, did he get the hat yet, when you asked me where I gave up.
we can get that, but I just want to talk about when he at the very beginning has no tools. He carves something with his teeth out of wood. And then the second time he does that, he does a big smile and his teeth are missing. The third time he does it, he's like so proud of what he's carved, and then he spurts out an incredible amount of fake blood. And then the fourth time he does it, he's looking at it like from behind, like you see his back, and he is in like a a position of great pride, and he goes like, and like a full gallon of fake blood falls on the ground. Like that type of shit's good. But yes, the hat. The hat is he finally gets a raccoon, which is like the second tier. The easiest animal to get is a rabbit. The next easiest animal is a raccoon. And then you start to get to beavers, which are where you make your money. And the first time he catches a raccoon, he makes it into a hat, because he keeps going to the merchant, and being like, can I have some tools? And he's like, no, you need like stuff. Like you need to bring me stuff. I don't give it to you for free. These are I've been programmed with these prices. And so he needs to have a raccoon before he can have anything. And once he gets the hat, it's like, okay, like we have gotten past the part of the movie that is unrelenting failure. Which the thing about the unrelenting failure is that like literally it means that no progress is getting made.
Yes.
Like, by fucking definition.
It needs to establish these things. Despite that, it's a feeling of treading water. And I feel like that feeling is only validated because after the hat, we're cooking. We feel like we're making money. We're learning. We're progressing. We're going up the tech tree. There's just a sense of momentum.
Yes. Like when he gets 2 beavers and can buy whatever thing costs 2 beavers, it feels like, holy shit, I never thought we'd make it here. And then like 20 minutes after that, 2 beavers is like nothing. Like, you know what it actually is? Like the movie, like the gate that gets to the next like act, the thing that is actually occurring is basically like those games, those phone games, where like you have a bunch of things passively generating income, and you like after a certain amount of time has passed, you tap it and and like you harvest it, and you get like that is literally the movie for the middle part is just. And again, you see the map, you see the UI. I'm not being facetious here. He's walking in a circle through all of the major fucking hexagons of the map. And that was the other thing.
They
So it's
established
like
that he has fast travel. Okay, there's fast travel in the world because there's like holes that cause portals. Just like you kind of like very Looney Tunes, like you go in a hole and you come out the other side.
Joe mentioned like it's so funny how everything is the same distance away, and I'm like, Joe, it's literally like a board game where you set up a bunch of hexagons and that's the map, and he's just like flipping over the next hexagon, and like every hexagon has one notable object on it.
It's a resource or point of interest.
Oh my god, he's just going around to all of his points of interest and collecting his passive income. And eventually he has enough animals that he can get a new object, which will allow his build to be even better.
So that's, you can see the formula here. So the task is like, can you make this interesting for an hour and a half? Like, is the formula there? And the answer is fucking yes.
I will say, and we've sort of alluded to this, but I want to make it like clear because some people might watch this on a recommendation, and I want them to know that we felt this too, so it's not weird if you feel it. When you're in the tutorial section and he's just like he's trying to get rabbits, and the only thing that he has to do that is like basically making snow rabbits and like putting snow boobs on a snow rabbit to make a rabbit horny. When you're just watching that happen over and over and over and over and over, you might think, as we both did, like
that we're evil and dumb.
Maybe this is a piece of shit. Like maybe we got overhyped and got sold a false bill of goods, because like this is just, I don't know about this. I'm not loving this. This is actually kind of feeling tiring and repetitive. It's normal to feel that way. The pacing of this movie is, to be clear, extremely stupid. Any like experienced filmmaker who like knows about like the studio system would know, like, you can't pace a movie like this. It's gonna make people fucking insane. Well, yes, but when you pull it off with this much sort of chutzpah, it like circles back around to being amazing. But like, you might have that experience in the beginning, just letting you know that's not crazy. You're not like not getting it.
Also, if you listen to our show, there's a good chance you understand video game concepts, so you might not need a full 20-minute hand-holding logic tutorial before it really gets going, and you might find it especially annoying. Don't worry, your knowledge and love of video game mechanics will be rewarded if you just, like, there were a few times where I was just like, okay, so this is the level you've ascended to. It's like seeing Goku go up the Super Saiyans in front of Beerus. I'm like, I see, yes.
We need to talk about how the movie looks, because this is a huge thing, and it is a major reason why it's so good. And one of the reasons it's so good is that, again, this is a super indie thing. This is just two homies made this whole thing, and it only cost, the budget at least that's reported, I can't tell you how accurate this is, $150,000 even. That's all it took to make this movie. So you're like, how could they do that? How could a movie with so many animals be made that cheaply? Because animals cost a lot, because you need to have trained animals, and you have to have their handlers on set, and it's like you have to make sure they're safe. How are you gonna do that? And also, like, to make the animals like participate in the gags perfectly, like that's tough. How do we?
We're gonna use big fucking mascot suits. That's all the animals: beavers, rabbits, wolves, same height. They're people sized. Doesn't matter. Is there gore? No, because inside every animal is a bunch of stuffed organs, by which I mean a big stuffed heart, a big stuffed lung, stuffed intestines, and packing peanuts. So
and so you're forgetting the funniest fucking part, that in every animal there is a human science class skeleton underneath all of that.
Fucking yes. So here's the thing, like, it's funny to do like the gags, to be like, oh, this is our low budget sort of approach. But here's the thing, it becomes a stylized choice that like kicks ass more than if they had money. When the violence really gets cooking, the stuffing and the
packing peanuts especially,
they do a lot of heavy lifting, because there is some insane violence in this that is remains goofy and funny, because everybody's filled with fluff. There is one example, I think, is that like even fluff can't like do this. Is there's You know that section in Turtles in Time when you're surfing in the sewer?
Yeah.
Okay, there's that basically on sleds, and at which point the main guy just has like his hunting elephant gun, and he just shoots a beaver, and it just like takes off the top of his skull with like the packing peanuts, and it's just like, oh shit, like that was the cute logic, but like, oh, it's still a gun.
It's so fucking. I mean, this happens so many times where like the movie will sort of lull you into a pace, you know, like killing a beaver will take this much time, and it will take this much of a convoluted scheme and or trap to do it. And so like after you've seen that so many times, to have it just be like, take my gun, turn around, pow, and like boom.
Oh, it's great.
Also, once in one scene he grabs a beaver by like its scruff. Well, because it's a costume, you can grab it by like the scruff of the chest, and he uppercuts the big beaver head off. And as it shoots off, obviously packing peanuts are flying out, and there is the fucking science class skull still there, sticking out of the costume. And it's like the first time you see this is when he brings his first raccoon to the shop, because the shop owner's daughter, who's in love with him,
who's like an NPC who like she's like a Monster Hunter character. Like you come back from your hunt and you're like, here's what I got, and then she carves it up for you. So what she does is she takes the beaver apart and gives you coins.
Yes, and that's like the first time you see the inside of one of these animals, and like she opens it up, and this is so fucking smart because like you see an entire scene. We're just focusing specifically on like, okay, here is what we got for our effects. You know, we have a stuffed animal heart. We have a big ziggy-zaggy intestine, again, stuffed. And like we have packing peanuts, and everyone's treating this like it's like our main character is going like yuck when he like sees the packing peanuts come out. As soon as you do that scene, as soon as that's over,
you can do any violence you want.
Well, yes, but also it's no longer like a budget constraint that this is how we're doing the animals. It's like
it's a Nen limitation, which gives you a boost.
Yes. It's like if they like got a studio being like, we would love you to remake Hundreds of Beavers with a huge budget. Here's $10 million to do this again. That's probably true, but I feel like even if they knew exactly what to do and could make it so that it did work, even with all the money in the world, they should not, and I don't think these guys would change how the animals are. I think they would still have packing peanuts and stuffies and a science class skeleton, even if they had all the money in the world, because it's just so fucking funny. It's so good.
Yeah.
Joe, talk about the horse.
Okay, yeah. As you know, we got full body animals. There is a horse. There is a First Nations guy who has a horse. He trades a peace pipe for an axe at some point, and the axe is really a huge power upgrade, because the way he kills beavers is by chopping down trees that crush them. So that really kicks things off. So his horse is just obviously it would not be a surprise to hear me say the horse is just like two guys, but like it's not even kind of good. Like like the beaver suits, the wolf suit, like they all like they're big costumes. Okay? Like if you were at some sort of theme park and you saw the animals, you'd be like, fine. If you saw the horse, you'd be like, this is fucked. Why is this allowed? They made it so all of the breaks in the costume are like guaranteed to be a human face or something. Obviously not the horse. I
mean, to say nothing of like, there's the horse, like the horse head, like has a hole for the person who's wearing its face, like built in, like, on purpose.
Stare. It's this. It's a complete like middle distance. Like, you know what? It's like pretend you're dead.
Yes.
Pretend you're a corpse.
Because like in sort of Banjo-Kazooie sound pantomime, like the Native American trapper is like saying like I love like this is my horse, I love my horse, like it's so good, and like there's a close up of him like petting the horse's head, and there's like just some fucking guy again with like a corpse face trying to look as unobtrusive as possible. It's so fun. And then later, I mean, we see a number of times him caring for his horse. He's with his horse. At one point in the climax, he's like, I have to spring into action. And he jumps on his horse and is like, yeah, let's go. And it is so fucking funny because it looks exactly like a grown man jumping on the back of someone who is hunched over under a sheet and trying to go. Oh, God. And it's just like at that point, especially in the movie, like the build is so intense that like our guy, our main guy is like, he's like high level. Like he knows all the spells. He's like succeeding constantly. He's implementing crazy plans and crazy schemes and crazy traps that are like killing beavers by the dozen. And so like he is like super competent. And so we're used to seeing things working. And when he gets on the horse and it just fucking falls apart and it's like clearly two guys. Oh, yes. Yes. This movie does such a great job of like setting up like this is how it works. This is how it works. And then having one gag be like the opposite of that, but in a way that doesn't actually.
It's the exception that proves the rule as opposed to just like violating it.
So I gotta tell you, I'm gonna be really honest with you. I have no idea what that phrase, the exception that proves the rule.
Did it sound smart? I don't know what it means either.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, now you made me show my ass.
Well, okay. You're just mirroring me to make me save face. You actually know. That's what we're gonna go with. But like, I just use it to mean like when something breaks a rule, but I'm like pissy about it and want to prove like the rule's still good. I'm like, it's the exception that proves the rule. What is that? In what sense does it prove the rule? Anyway,
what it means is, despite what is happening, I'm still right.
Yes, I mean yes. Obviously, that's what it actually means. But, like, I don't know why those words got chosen to mean that. Anyway, back to what you were saying.
So I have two vectors here I want to touch on. One, I want to talk about goof vectors again with the specific example of the shopkeeper's spittoon thing.
Oh, yes, yes.
And then the other thing I want to touch on, which the horse does, and we said this when we were watching it. It's like, okay, we have this movie that has, like, very goofy Looney Tunes physics. One of the wonderful things you can do is if you have a cartoon or whatever, or a movie like this, that's fantastical in its fucking physics, just switch back to real physics for once in a while. Just like once,
yes.
Just 1 or 2 minutes, just like a gagger, and it's so fucking funny.
Yeah, because a lot of the times when a log will fall on a beaver, it'll be going crazy fast and it'll make a big comedy blam sound effect. And like huge clouds of packing peanuts will come out. And also this is another video game logic thing, like it has been programmed that like when animal equals dead, eyes equals X.
Instantly.
And so like
as soon as their health is
yes.
0, they got X's.
Yes, like it'll be one frame transition, like X. But like there is a couple of times when there is like a visible trap on screen where you see all the components of this trap and there is like a log that's going to fall and like that's the thing, that's the main part of the trap. And the beaver walks in, springs the trap, and they don't augment the footage at all. So like this prop log, which is clearly not heavy because they don't want to kill the actor.
Like this. Yes,
it falls down and does like 0 damage, but the beaver dies anyway.
Yeah, he falls with like he falls the way you would see like an old person fall. That's not funny. It's just realistic.
God. Yeah, and the other sort of physics juke that we both fucking like died at is later on. Our guy's in like basically a hunting lodge, and there are fish mounted on the wall, and he's trying to fight a bunch of beavers in like a martial arts fight. And he takes one of these fish off the wall, and like all fish, it's a stuffed animal, and so it's really floppy. And he's like, he's like fighting with it's a swordfish, so like it has a sword. You know how it goes. And then to like end the scene, he just takes the whole fish, hauls off, and throws it as hard as he can at a beaver's head.
And the sound it makes is like a bag of wet sand, and he fucking reacts. Like they must have actually filled that sucker up with stuff because he becomes a Gary's mod.
Yes.
It's just like the most wet slap sound, and then his body becomes ragdoll, and it's very quick. And it just, again, you just get hit with reality for a second, and it keeps going.
Yes. I mean, also just like the sound effect of the fish
Whack.
hitting the beaver's head is like 10 times louder than anything else. It's like, oh!
It's so
They just go right past
funny.
it. I fucking love it, dude.
So goof vectors, I want to talk about the spittoon thing.
Yes.
What do I mean by this? It's like a lot of these gags have like their origins from the jump. Like from the beginning, his failures, you see goofs in some sort of way. One of those is every time he has an interaction with the shopkeeper, who doesn't like him because like
He's not good at trapping.
he's not good at trapping. He has a daughter, and he's worried everyone's going to marry his daughter. You know, that sort of thing. And he likes to, stay away from my daughter. He doesn't say this, but like in his NPC way. And then he'll do a cartoonish like spit to do, chewing tobacco spit at a spittoon. And he misses. And so like, I think over the course of the film, that means there's like 8 spittoon gags.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tall order to make it interesting on the 7th time after we've been sitting through a very taxing movie, but they fucking do. Like he spits, he misses. He spits, it splits into 2 to go into 2 buckets. They both miss. The one that we can't stand, that we think about a lot, is he's like big cartoonish chewing, and he spits it into his gun and then aims it at the spittoon and shoots and fucking misses. Just shoots the ground right next to it.
Because as soon as you see him go whoosha, 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 because he does a big cartoon whoosha, 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 and you're like, okay, I know he's going to miss the spittoon. But like every single time he does something beforehand that requires more and more and more precision, and he does that perfectly, and you're like, surely it's not going to miss.
And then at the end, would you believe that the shopkeeper tries to spit directly at our hero? And what are the rules? The rules are this man can never make the spittoon shot. So as the thing is coming at him, he holds up the spittoon, which causes it to change direction as if it is a ghost.
It's so because like this is why our guy is like so smart, because like he actually like can learn, and like I get so proud when he like makes it work, because like he wants to get fish, because fish are not the goal, but fish are a resource that it's good to have. And this is, again, there's so many different resources. And so at first, he tries to get a fish. He just puts a hook in the water. It doesn't work. He puts a fly on the hook. It doesn't work. He puts a maggot on the hook. It doesn't work. He realizes if I bite my finger, blood comes out. So I'll put my bloody finger in the water. A fish likes the blood. It bites it. And so that's how he gets fishes at first. And eventually he's like, oh, I know what I'll do. Like,
Time to scale up.
Yeah, like have some meat, and I'll put the meat on a hook, and then I'll have a snowman hold the fishing pole, and then I come back later and I get the fish. And like he walks away from this setup so proud, and a fish comes, bites the fucking hook, and we go back up above the water, and we see what would happen, which is the fucking fishing pole, as soon as it gets pulled at all, immediately falls out of the snowman and gets pulled under. And so we're like, oh, what a dumbass, like he's fucked it again. Eventually, the Native American trapper trades, like he's got, like this is the secondary market. We have the market where you have to use currency, but then there's like a trading quest, like for the big Goron sword from Ocarina of Time, that is the Native American trapper, where he gives him one of those like stick fish traps, like the fish can, like it's like a cage, and the fish can swim in, but it can't swim out. And so he buys one, reverse engineers it, and makes like 20, and he puts them all in the river, and all of them are connected to a snowman up above, that when a fish goes in the trap, it gets heavier and pulls one of the arms down and pulls the other arm up, so it looks like it's raising its hand saying, I got one. And like when you see him do this and like it's working,
my boy is learning. You do feel a sense of pride. Did you mention that he catches 10 fish at once because he bites all of his fingers and sticks them in the water? That's so fucking funny.
Yes, this is, okay, so I wrote this down because I hadn't thought of this until now, but this is a good time to bring it up, which is the hundreds of beavers, in addition to being gaming, it's Nen. We talk so often about how Nen is funny because they make the rules, and then the entire story is Now, what are like the most insane ways we can imply these rules? Like, what is the edge case that like requires a real freak rules lawyer to be like, actually, doesn't that mean that you can do this? And it's like, well, in this case, yes. In this case, doing that is the whole point. And like, that's what we mean. It's like, he's like, if bloody finger in water, then fish. And he's like, if bloody finger in water times 10,
yeah, there's
then
no
10
cooldown.
fish.
It just happens.
So I want to talk about this moment that we alluded to it with the wiffle bat, but I want to actually specifically describe it. And I don't know if this is going to be a spoiler. If this is interesting to you, you got to see this movie. And even if you describe the gags, it's not the same as seeing them.
Someone
like,
still has to make them. Do you understand that? Like,
Yes.
you have to look at it with your eyes. Us talking is not the same.
So we discussed how the wiffle bat he gets as a weapon, you hit a beaver with it, they die. Doesn't matter how hard you hit them, it can be like a boop on the back, they just die because it's
the
a weapon.
golden gun.
Yes. So have that in your mind. We also see there's a time where he's like with a great trapper. It's like he's with Minwoo from Final Fantasy II, where it's just like, oh my god, like this guy is like high level. Like this guy's great. And then the high level character dies like Minwoo, and it's like, oh my god, not even Minwoo could do it. I'm gonna have to be better than him. Wow. Incredible. And one of the things that the expert trapper teaches our guy is a way to make a spinny trap where you put a log with like a spike on the end and you wind it way, way up. And then when a beaver takes the bait, it spins around and impales them. And he's like, great. And he makes one and he sets it up and a beaver takes the bait, but he didn't wind it up enough and the spike doesn't make it to the beaver. It just kind of
touches his belly, yeah.
Yeah, it winds it up more. But this time, he winded up too much, so it does get the beaver, impales the beaver, but it makes it's a giant fan, and it makes a big tube of wind that's incredibly powerful. And so then we end up with, he has done one of those, and he has set it up to be constantly spinning, so that it is just like a fucking like tube of wind from fucking Zelda Breath of the Wild.
You can imagine, like, in a Game Boy game, in like a Zelda dungeon, how it's depicting a gust of wind across tiles. That is how it is depicted.
Yes, and a beaver gets caught up in this wind and is being blown through this tube of wind. And we then see that there is another opposite tube of wind that like leads to an area of total neutrality where things just float in midair. And floating in the middle of this area is the wiffle bat. And so beavers just drift into it at 0 miles per hour and then bonk, dead.
And then it zooms out and it shows all the corpses that are stuck floating because this contraption has caught many beavers. And it's the specific thing of like the impact doesn't matter. It just upon contact, fatal damage taken to the ultimate like end point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. God damn. Do you want to talk about the Sherlock Holmes beaver?
Yeah, why not?
Give me the gist, Joe.
So, as our boy sort of gets momentum and is killing beavers on the regular, the beavers, which are building a dam, which is kind of ominously growing in the background into an obelisk, they're starting to notice that, like, someone's killing them.
Yeah.
So there's a beaver Sherlock Holmes and a beaver Watson that get deployed to find out. And they're basically just like any other beaver, except they just watch the other beavers die sometimes.
And when we say beaver Sherlock Holmes, it's a guy wearing a beaver costume. And then on top of that is a Sherlock Holmes hat and Sherlock Holmes cape. And the other guy has a Watson hat and a Watson mustache on the beaver costumes. It's so fucking funny. Eventually our guy gets like, he's in the midst of like getting the hundreds of beavers because again, another incredible move. Like the title card that says hundreds of beavers with like the production
it's like
logos.
An hour in.
This year. Yes, an insane amount of time in. Like the credits are an insane amount. They're like half an hour, maybe 40 minutes in. And when I watched it for the first time, I thought I had like looked at my phone or something because it like explained like so-and-so as our fur trapper, so-and-so as the merchant, so-and-so as the furrier in And then there's no, like, I thought I missed what they were in. No, you just have to wait another hour to see what they're in. It's hundreds of beavers. Anyway, he's getting hundreds of beavers, and he gets, like, arrested by the beavers for mass murder.
I have a key point I gotta say.
Oh, give me.
We're talking video games, right?
Yes.
Talking video games means you gotta eventually have the argument, like, what's the difference between Final Fantasy VI and Chrono Trigger? Like, what makes them different? Like, what makes Chrono Trigger better is that it has the court scene.
Yes.
And
yes.
Okay, so
yes.
Would you believe that there's a court part? There's a he's put on trial for his crimes, and he's assigned a beaver public defender, which is so fucking funny. I want to be clear. There's still no more words. The court sequence is amazing because, as you might sort of get from how we're describing it, the movie has been very fast cuts and gags up until this point. And now there's just like long tracking shots of court.
and like, oh my God. So like the beaver prosecutor like has a slideshow that explains what he's been doing and how beavers are being furred, and the fur is being sent to Europe to make hats. And this guy is the guy who's making that possible. And the beaver court, the beaver jury, and the beaver gallery is gasping. And again, like the beaver public attorney doesn't say words, but like when it's about to go up, it says Banjo-Kazooie tones that clearly indicate like, don't worry, buddy, I got this. It gets up to give its sort of counter defense.
Dude, he falls immediately.
And immediately fucking falls.
It's just so... I was not prepared. I wasn't.
When he's in court, like, two things. One, when you see the court is on the inside of this dam that they've been building throughout, and like we've been seeing it get bigger and bigger every time our boy walks past it, and he has had zero curiosity about it whatsoever, which is very funny. But like when we go inside this dam, which is where the court is, it becomes clear that he really is like one of the murderers of all time, because it is essentially just human society. Like these are fucking people.
There's actually only one problem in society. It's him.
Yes, he's like the I Am Legend vampire. Wait, no, they're all vampires. The human is the vampire because he's the one killing. That's the whole twist. I remember. But as you mentioned, like there is the Turtles in Time, like surfing in the sewer level. There are so many but it's also a Donkey Kong minecart level. Like there are so many times when like they're on this log flume, and like
it does the Donkey Kong Dick Freeze thing, which is amazing. Which is when you bounce off a platform, you destroy it, so you feel like as you lurch forward, you're like destructive and creative. It's so awesome.
Yeah, and like there's like they're whooshing past, and like there are obstacles that are some are high and some are low, and so like you have to jump and you have to duck, and like there are two other beavers trying to get him, and like one by one they like do the wrong thing, and like they duck when they should jump and jump when they should duck, and it's like this is a fucking this is gaming, dude. Like I'm playing. Like they just need to put fucking QuickTime events, and it doesn't even you don't even need to make there be any different. Like you don't have to have a fail state. It can just be fucking pretend. I would still have a controller in my hand and go like hey when like A shows up. I would love it.
So we won't specifically spoil this, but I will leave this cut out. There are a few gags, or rather locations, I guess, on the map that had maybe gags I missed or I just didn't get it. Like, I didn't really get what was happening there. Like, for instance, there's a scene where he, like, walks into the scene. It's very, like, third-person point and click. Like, the thing of interest is in the middle of the screen, and he walks up, and he has question marks over his head, and goes, and it just kind of moves on. At the time, I was like, maybe I didn't get that joke, or maybe there's something I missed. No, nothing is missed. There are specifically 4 fucking points of interest for post-game that are held out in front of you and presented in what I can only feel like a magician's reveal.
Yes. It really, because in a pure magician fashion, they showed you everything, but they misdirected you. Because, like, these points of interest where you're just like, do I miss the joke? Like, I don't get what the gag is here. Which is unusual, because these gags are not subtle. And you're just like, huh. But they're so short. Like, he goes up. Like, there's one that's just, he sees a big ice cube that's, like, 10 feet by 10 feet. And he's like, what the fuck? And you're just like, huh. these scenes last like maybe 5 seconds each, and there's like 4 of them. So that's 20 seconds in a movie that's like an hour and a half. So you see that, you're confused, but by the end, by this big set piece at the end, you have totally fucking forgotten about this. There's no chance it's still in your mind because you're absorbed by what's happening now.
You've seen so many kills. There's no way you're thinking about the cube.
And then they do a reveal of what those 4 things were. And man, like, we're talking about gates. We're talking about this movie as gates. And like, gates both in that, like, you walk through this gate and suddenly, like, just the scale is different because his ability to kill beavers has, like, leveled up and it's exponentially scaling. And, like, you hit another gate and it's another explosion of efficiency.
And then the beavers are also on their own trajectory.
Yeah, well, that too. But there are also gates of like your experience as a watcher, like seeing the as we described, the floating wiffle bat that just kills flying beavers that drift into it. Like when I saw that the first time, that's what I'm like, okay, my earlier doubt that maybe this was overhyped is gone because that was like, that's my favorite thing that I've ever seen in my life. And when I was watching this with Joe for the first time, you had exactly the same reaction. I was looking at you and you were just like, oh, okay.
You know what does it? It's the fact that the X's show up immediately upon the little bunk. It's fucking killer. But yes, it was, you know what it was? It was like in fighting mangas where like a guy is so strong you don't realize you're in danger, and it was like, oh my god, I just realized I'm actually in danger. Like I now sense the killing intent.
Yes, and so there's that's the gate that gets you into like, oh, I'm watching like a great fucking movie. And then when you get through the gate of the reveal of what those 4 things you didn't understand were, that's when it's just like, we're dealing with fucking geniuses.
So they like invented movies. I know they didn't do it first, but effectively, as far as I'm concerned, they invented movies.
And like, I can understand, like, this movie is, I looked up, you know, what do people think about this? Obviously, a lot of people think what we think. But there is not a small amount of people, I think it's like nearly half and half, who just like hate this movie. They cannot stand it. They can't get through it. They just turn it. They're like, this is not funny. It's just purely a slog, and I hate it. And I like to have sicko mindset and be like, different things are for different people, and it doesn't make you a bad person and not like something. But in this case, if you don't like Hundreds of Beavers, you are a hater and loser, and I spit on you.
We have Midwest pride about this. We feel that this is a cultural artifact that is part of our identity now. We're claiming it. I know the upper Midwest is different culturally than Chicago, but like it feels good to know that your neighbors split the atom.
Yeah, I think the reason that it's so hateful to me to shit on this movie and why I feel that only a villain could do it is you must understand that you're not watching like a studio product. You are watching 2 fucking Wisconsin boys who wrote so many visual gags that they were like, we have to go to the woods. And that's the thing. They went to the woods. Like, this is shot in the woods. Like, we have to go to the woods with our camera and shoot the gags. Like, you understand? Like, they could have done anything else, you know? Like, the chance that this was going to make any money, and it has somehow, the chance that this was going to make any money is basically 0. Like, they just, like, this is why I identify with it so much, because, like, 2 boys from the Midwest who have to do their artistic thing that no one will want. Who does that remind you of? Like, it's so beautiful, and, like, if you're like, blah, blah, slapstick is, I don't like slapstick, blah, 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 the pacing is so bad, they should have cut. Yeah, yes, the pacing is bad, and yes, they should have cut some gags, but you have to understand, like, why would they not? Oh, it's because this is not like a studio product meant to be like a perfect machine of entertainment. This is like 2 fucking freaks who are like, let's get drunk and go to the woods and shoot our gags, man. And like, that's so beautiful. Even if you just read a story about this happening and then like the end was like, and the footage was lost in a fire, you'd still be like, well, I love Hundreds of Beavers for what it represents. But it didn't get lost in a fire, and it is extremely good.
It is. regarding the pacing and what he's saying, I'm of two minds. I agree completely with the reason I bounced off this initially is the reasons Tom is describing. That said, the slowness and the meanderingness at the end of the day makes where it winds up even fucking funnier.
Yes.
So I can't be too upset about the pace. It's just like one of those things where it's just like in terms of absolute distance, by having that pace at the start, but what's happening at the end, you are just like, I have been through the gauntlet. I have done New Game Plus. You are just completely aware of how your context has changed. And I think it works for that reason, but you have to get through it.
Yes. It's all of it works on paper. And that's something that we discussed is like how much, like what was the writing process? Like, did they like write a script or was it just like a spreadsheet of gags that they like chose from? Another thing about the pacing is that this is a movie that, especially because it is essentially silent and because every single little gag adds to sort of the logic and rule set of the movie, is like you cannot be doing something like this is a single screen only movie. If you have your phone out or you're playing a game, if you look down for like 10 seconds,
you're fucking dead.
Dead.
You're fucking dead.
Like you're gonna miss the fucking part where they establish the rules of the wiffle bat.
We talked about intentionality with Merritt a little bit about LAN parties, and this is an example. Like you need to sit and watch the movie. It's movie time. Sit.
Yes.
Watch the movie and only the movie.
Obviously, it's like if a cinephile is going to say, oh, that goes for every movie. But, like, let's be real. I look at my phone sometimes during movies.
I don't even looking at my phone, and I look at my phone.
Yeah, dude. There's nothing good on there. But this one is just like, you know, like literally, if you take your eyes off the screen, like you will miss the tutorial that says, like, to open the chest, press A, and then you're going to be the Game Grumps being like, how do I open the chest? This game's badly designed. It's impossible to open the chest. And it's like, no,
that was kind of
Seinfeld. You just weren't looking.
You kind of were doing Seinfeld. That was fun.
Seinfeld, he is a fucked up type of guy. Oh, speaking of fucked up types of guys, so the two guys who were in charge, who made this movie, they both wrote it. One also directed, and the other was the star, like the main guy who's doing the slapstick. The writer-director, this is a totally normal, like I love this guy's name. It's pure Midwest white bread guy. It's Mike Cheslick.
Perfect. Comforting. I trust this.
The writer-star is named, fucking strap in, folks, for some bullshit, Ryland Brixson? And somehow I'm not done. Cole, somehow I'm not done. Tews.
So one more time, everything together. Ryland Brixson Cole Tews. So my immediate thought, this is not Midwest appropriate as a name. It's got too many names.
There's 4 names, dude.
That's 2 people.
That's greedy.
Yeah.
You're showing off.
Obviously, as Midwesterners, we take issue with this, and we feel a sense of ownership over this movie because like we've adopted it into our cultural heritage. So I would just suggest that like maybe knocking 2 of those names off, maybe making one of them an actual first name.
Yeah, just like go with Cole Tews. That'll do you. Cole is an acceptable first name, even though it's a last name. Ryland Brixson is like
a very precautious child.
Like, we're out of Ryland Brixson license plates in the gift shop. What's that? My son's name is also Ryland Brixson. Not acceptable. I mean, I say not acceptable, but if I ever met this guy, the first thing I would say is, sir, the way that you fall on your fucking ass and throw fish at beavers has rendered me completely willing to forgive your ridiculous name. Come on our podcast.
The other thing this game, I said game.
It's true. You're not wrong. Don't correct yourself because there's nothing to correct.
The other thing this movie game does that I guess is like unacceptable is that it tricked me into wanting to play like survival craft games again, because I'm literally seeing a guy like just successfully go up the complexity of a survival craft game, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
that looks kind of fun. And the thing is, no, it's not fun. I'm only watching the good parts. The part that I don't like is also the part of the movie that sucks, which is him trying to get food for 20 minutes.
Yeah. You're like, how do how do I hit a tree with my bare hand enough to get 3 wood? Here's the I totally agree with you that it makes it makes me like want to play Pal World, which is basically what these kinds of games are. It's just, I mean, what are the pals but beavers, and like what you get, 3 wood and 4 fiber, and you make bed, and like, oh, now that I have bed, I can do blah, 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 blah. And like it gets you in that mindset of like, if I just get this resource, then I'll be able to get this, which maybe be able to get this, and then I'll be able to get that, and then I'll be able to get that, and this will make me have exponential scaling, and blah 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 blah, blah. And it's like, oh, this is so fucking fun. The thing that I have to keep reminding myself is that in Hundreds of Beavers, when he makes his progress, what actually comes of that is a funny gag. In these video games, like when you unlock like bed, the thing that comes from that is
you will now
bed.
Spawn someplace more convenient when you die.
Yeah, it's like, I don't care. Like, it's like when we were playing Wrath of the Lamb, and like the really late game buildings that are like really specialized, and like the game's not hard enough to need them.
Yeah.
And so technically I can get the resources and build them, but just like, I don't, like, this is not like what, I don't care. And I feel like that's why I never get tempted by these survival games, because it's like, well, it's just, the only rewards are just the things that it has already, like it's a closed system. Like,
yeah, and if the system itself does not feel like, look, if the idea of just going up the tech tree or getting those things is itself interesting, it's clear that like that's the point of the thing for you, right? Like you get to play in the slop, the spreadsheet slop. But I agree completely.
Yeah, I think also having played Cookie Clicker before any of these sort of ruins me, because like if you want a game that the only reward you're going for is like, again,
pure
the game like the game
dopamine
offers you just more of that. Why would I go for something that's Cookie Clicker with a lot of tedious extra shit when I could just play Cookie Clicker? There needs to have an extrinsic reward. The extrinsic reward in this game, Hundreds of Beavers, is a funny joke that I laugh at, haha. Like the extrinsic reward for like Dark Souls type game is I fight a cool boss with a combat system I like, and I'm having fun out of the game in my life. This fucking these POW worlds, it's like you can get crafting bench level 3. It's like, I care not for crafting bench level 3. You can take that away. I don't want that.
I would say my experience with this genre, because again, it's a game and not a movie, is that I am very excited about crafting bench level 1. Very pumped about crafting bench level 2. When I get 3, I want to fucking die, and I hate the time I spent getting here.
Yeah.
But you don't have
was
that
all
problem
for this?
with this because they are playing.
I love it. Hundreds of Beavers. I don't know if I want to fully spoil these bits, because man, they're very fun. They're very funny, and it goes with what we were saying of like the game will condition you, be like, this is like the shape of the bits, this is how these little chunks of movie go. Okay. And then they give you one that, while it doesn't actually break any of the programmatic logic of the movie, switches things up so much that you're caught out, and it's double funny, because it's funny on its face, and then also what?
It sounds very stupid and like stonery to phrase it like this, but it is truly like the feeling of, is this happening? Like, you do feel that you're on a ride and you thought you would be getting off soon, and then it does a U-turn and it's something different.
There are 2 moments in the movie where we've talked about it being a silent film with Banjo-Kazooie noises. And it is.
This broke me. It broke my brain.
There are 2 moments where they just say words extremely clearly, like a real movie.
I'll spoil it. I don't care. He yells, "Oh shit," at some point in like an hour in, and they bleep it, which is hysterical.
Wait, they do?
Yeah, it was beeped.
That's so fucking good.
But it hits like a truck because he's only been talking like one way, and then all of a sudden he does a different thing. It's if you want a wonderful example in action of like how much juice you can get out of just like here is a common thing. We're gonna make one little iteration on a vector of a goof or a visual joke. This is it. You get to see wonderful mutations of the same joke that honestly never get old. The only part that gets old is before they have the combo meter really going.
God, we haven't talked about this. Is another video game thing. I just want to talk about this because it's so fucking good, and maybe it would have been better earlier, but fucking sue me. I don't fucking care. Talk about video games. There's a corpse run, like the expert trapper gets killed by wolves, and like all of his XP, which is to say his bag of beavers, is in the wolves' den.
And this is such a key point in every survival game because there's always that fucking area you can't get to because you die instantly and you spend it like, maybe I can get in there. And then you get killed.
Yes, so like he wants to go into the wolves' den and retrieve the dropped experience. And I mean, it's one of the points of interest on his map that he walks around in a circle checking every time. And every time he comes back, he has gained a lot of experience and material on his previous circuit. And so the first time, like, again, it's like a dungeon with a little red skull floating above it. He goes in. He's like, I wonder how far I can get. Oh, not very far. He used to run out, and he keeps going in and in, deeper and deeper and deeper in. When he finally, like, again, is like he's such a dumbass, our main character. And like he's kind of like a goofy idiot because he's like a slapstick guy who doesn't talk. But when he like displays like real thought and planning and like has internalized all of the logic of the world that's been shown to him and uses it to create this like multi-part plan, all of which, every step of which we've seen how it works and why it would work. It's like I've never been. Again, this is Midwest pride. Like I've never been prouder of my boy, because like not only is this a character doing this, but like this is my boy. Like this is Midwest pride at work. These are not like big time Hollywood folks. These are not like if they made Hundreds of Beavers in New York, they'd be like, we gotta cast Dasha in a cameo. And it's like, no.
She would be the trapper keeper's daughter for sure. I just love this movie. I don't know what else to say. This would be something I would enjoy seeing at the Music Box for sure.
They probably had it there at some point. I think like the way that they made money is they just put it in like festivals and like it would like get screened. Oh, I'm looking at the fucking Wikipedia. It literally calls out that it was shown in the Music Box early in its life. Yeah, like they just submitted it to festivals and had like independent theaters like show it for like a week. And it just keeps going and going and going and going and going, getting more and more freaks like us into its thrall. Because like it came out, and when did it come out? It came out in 2022, but like it's only now sort of like reaching like big appeal and big audience. And I think that's so good. Oh, here's actually, you said, what more can I say? Here's what you can say. You can watch Hundreds of Beavers legally and for free on YouTube right now. So why don't you do that?
If for some reason you are connected to these guys, we would love to interview them. I would just ask them goof science questions. I was like, let me see, can you show me your math on some of these goofs? I'm very interested in hearing more about the process. So I'm putting that out in the world.
Like I would be like, if you could share with me the Google Sheets that has all the gags in it, and I know that it exists. I know you have one.
If it's not a Google Sheet, it's something, but there is an asset somewhere.
Yes. Gosh, but is that because I'm like, I like it has to be that they like just came up with like an insane amount of gags, so they'd have like incredible amounts of raw material. But then I'm thinking about again all the foreshadowing, which you don't know you're getting. And it's like, well, they had like the order really matters. Like it really matters that like you see him make this trap that gets a rabbit and flings them a mile away at this point, because now like the flinging is on the table. Which God damn, this movie's so good.
After this movie ends is just, so this was made by geniuses for sure.
I always say, People are like, who would your ideal Anime Sickos guest be? And a lot of the times it's people who are just interested, and a lot of the times it's like people who are trying to help the podcast grow. And it's like, you need to come up with your reach guest. Who's your reach guest? My answer is always Tim Robinson. And when it's someone who's trying to help us, they always go like, oh, well, not that kind of reach. So like we'll never fucking get that. On the same level is Mike Cheslick and Ryland. Sorry, I can't say his name with 11. Ryland Brixton Cole Tews. Get them on.
Please.
Where are you guys?
Show us the Google Sheet with all of the goofs.
Hell yeah. Anyway, is there anything more to say? Have we covered it?
No, it's if you can get through the first 20 minutes, you will be rewarded. This is a single screen viewing. I'm repeating this again. Intentionality, intentionality, intentionality. Sit down and watch a movie, and actually watch a movie. And if it's exhausting and you hate it, you can yell at Tom, not me.
Yeah. You know what I will say? I can guarantee that you have not seen anything like this. It is so weird and so unique and so itself. That's, I think, a core of why this fills us with such warmth of Midwestern pride. Because, like, this is guys in the woods doing gags, black and white silent movie, hilariously low budget beaver costumes, Adobe After Effects animation effects that look so fake. But
in a fun way. Whenever he climbs up a tree, they make a point to make it look like it's so fucking clearly him in front of a green screen, like hugging like a mattress or something, and he's like inching up, and it's like very clunky. I love it. It's so good.
Oh, there are so many times when there are beavers walking on a background that's added in later, and the beavers, the speed at which they move on the x-axis is not the fucking same as how their feet are moving, and it's funny every time. These sort of low budget things that look fake, if you don't try to hide it, it doesn't, like, it makes it better. This is why, like, if they gave him $15 million, they would not change the beaver costumes, because they are fucking perfect. They are supposed to look like shit. They are supposed to have stuffies in them. It's so funny that the skeleton inside doesn't really look, it looks like a science class skeleton, because it is 100% that, because that's the cheapest skeleton you can buy. I love it.
What is it about movies that lends itself to the very important feature of made with buds? I guess music can do this too, but there's something about movies, because it's such a production. It's such a problem-solving process.
Mm-hmm. I think the key is, it is the biggest scope that two buds with a hair up their ass could possibly pull off. For example, if you decrease the scope to a podcast, there is nothing interesting inherently in two buds making a podcast. That's what two buds do. That's what they've done since the dawn of time. Podcast is just talking. Two buds in a band, again, that's bands, like, that's bands at a baseline. There's nothing interesting about that. The band has to be interesting. The story of, like, did you know we were friends before we started the band? I don't fucking care. That doesn't add anything. Two friends made a TV show? That's impossible.
Yeah, because like an agent has to say yes and allow it to happen. I think what movies has is, you're right, it's the largest thing in scope that stands alone and cannot be like
standing alone,
cut up further. And by that I mean, like, if you make an album, the units are songs. Like, there could be breakout songs or whatever. This has to stand together as a cohesive whole in the way maybe other stuff doesn't. And also, movies are such a logistical thing. You have to solve for everything. By which I mean, like, how do we get people fed? How do we get people, like, just shit where it needs to go? That it's not quite happening, I think, with the other stuff.
And thus, all that labor behind the scenes when the movie, like, works is, like, incredible. Like, I don't know how it's possible to summon the amount of genius that was required to solve for X on this movie so many times and have it come out. Because, like, I mentioned, it's super low budget, but, like, I'm thinking back on it, and, like, really, it never feels like it. It never feels like anything is held
Everything
back.
feels like an intentional choice, and maybe choices were arrived because of limitations, but it's definitely better as a result of those limitations.
Like, I bet if you ask them, maybe we will. What would you have done differently if you had more money? But they might have said everything, because I remember back before we had Remy Sue on, creative director of Thousand Times Resist. I was reading interviews with him and such, and I think there's an AMA, and he's like, "What would you do different if you were making Thousand Times Resist again with more money?" And he's like, "Oh, literally everything, like every single part. Like it is nothing but compromises." And I'm like, "That's so interesting because it's great." And I wonder if that's true here, because it really doesn't feel like it. Like, it feels like this is exactly what was in their heads, and they made it real, and it's so admirable. And it's like, even if you don't like it, you have to admire this, right?
It's the same reason why, like, I don't care really about Star Wars. The original films have some fun troubleshooting low budget stuff in them that is fun to admire for the same reason. It is for that reason that I love all the shit that they're doing in this, because it's budget conscious problem solving.
Yes. If you have enough money, you can just like hire a fucking FX team and work them so hard that there remains no non-divorced individuals working at the studio. And then when they're done, you just don't pay them. You like can do that if you have the money to do that, but like it's so much more beautiful that it's just like we had to fucking like we bought mascot costumes from fucking Temu or something, and filled it with packing peanuts, like because that's what's inside the Beavers. And it's just like, it doesn't feel low budget. It feels like that is what's inside the Beavers. Like, what do you, God damn it. We're talking in circles because this is so good, but trust us, like, watch this movie, play this game.
It's a really good let's play.
Yes. All right, I gotta eat lunch. I'm getting hungry. Joe, this was great. This is all the time we have for Anime Sickos. I've been Tom, an Anime Sicko.
I've been Joe, an Anime Sicko.
Let's sign off by saying Mike Cheslick and Ryland Brixon Cole Tews, send us an email if you're listening.
Send us I'm not going to say that in unison with you, but you heard him. Send us an email. We would love to talk to you about goofs. How many Splatoon gags did you guys write? How many were there? I would love to know if some were left on the cutting room floor.
If you need two guys to
that
submit.
too.
All right, bye-bye. Thank you for listening to Anime Sickos. I've been Tom, a sicko. You can follow me on Blue Sky at Tom Harrison. Joe was also a sicko. You can follow him on Blue Sky at Sharia Uncle. You can follow Anime Sickos on Blue Sky at Anime Sickos, or email us at animesickos@gmail.com. You can give us money at patreon.com/Anime Sickos if you want. Please leave us a review or something. I don't know. Tell a friend. Anyway, until next time, bye.